Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about the great Stan Lee, if we could, for a moment. And
He's got a
um,
cameo in this movie, I believe.
um, so I wanted to talk about when you first met Stan, if you could, for a moment, and how you got him to do a cameo in Mallrats. If we
Oh
could
my
chat
God, I
through
would
that.
love to. Look, anytime we talk about our heroes that have passed, we bring them back to life. We keep them alive and shit. So I happily talk about Stan all the live long day. I met him on the set of Mallrats.
Okay.
First time I met him, but I knew who he was my whole life. My father, I think I was 9 or 10. I was getting ready for school. I went to OLPH, Our Lady of Perpetual Help. And my old man got home from work. He worked at the post office like in the mornings. So by 7 o'clock, he came home and shit like that. So I remember I was getting ready for school. And he goes, "Get in here, Kevin, come in here." And I came out. And he always did that when he wanted, like, there was a movie thing on TV, like a commercial, or if they were interviewing someone on Good Morning America, showing a clip of a movie, he would be like, "Come in here." So I went running in, and there was Stan Lee, young Stan Lee, from the late 70s.
Yeah.
He was being interviewed on like Good Morning America or the local news show, or Today. I forget which one it was. And my father said, "See that? That's the guy who's Spider-Man's dad. He made Spider-Man." And I knew Stan's name. I said Stan Lee because I knew his name because I read the comic books, and Stan was in the soapbox and shit. Sometimes they had a little drawing of him, and he looked like the guy in the drawing and shit. I said, "I know this guy." So, Stan Lee is a gift from parents to children, man. You see it like in all these Marvel movies. Whenever Stan pops up, fucking you see people lean toward one another and stuff. I saw on Twitter after he passed, somebody said like, "I'll miss him because I used to always go to those movies with my dad, and fucking when he popped up, we'd play Where's Stan, and then we'd look at each other and be like, there he is." Something that everybody could fucking share, man, because he was just such a charming old codger, man, like the Mark Twain of comic books, a true American icon. So I wrote a scene in Mallrats in which like a comic book guru gives advice to our main character, and I gave the script to Jim Jacks, our producer, to read, and Jim Jacks goes, "Who is this character meant to be? The one, the comic book guy?" I said, he's nobody in real life, but like I guess it would be kind of like a Stan Lee. And he goes, "Well, why don't you just make the character Stan Lee?" And I said, "Well, I don't fucking know Stan Lee." And Jim Jacks goes, "Well, I do, and I can get him involved." And that's when I said, Hollywood is good. These fuckers know each other. So I rewrote the pages and gave them to Jim, and he took them. Look, Axel takes one bullet in the arm after all those fucking bullets. Like, remember, they were spraying fucking bullets always at their feet for some reason. Very polite killers. One shot in the fucking arm by Victor Maitland. What a dead eye. But anyway, so I rewrote the scene for Stan, gave it to Jim. Jim took it to a meeting they were having at this restaurant out here called Dan Tana's. He met with Stan all the time. Jim Jacks, God rest his soul, he produced Mallrats, he produced Tremors, he produced Dazed and Confused, he produced the Mummy movies, the good ones that people like. He wanted to make Marvel movies before anyone was making Marvel movies. 1995, he was talking about trying to make a Marvel movie. That's why he became friends with Stan. He was a huge fan of Stan's stuff as a child. And, even though Stan didn't control any of the properties and stuff, Jim just loved being with him and picking his brain and getting him involved and shit like that. So he hero worshipped him the same way I did, but he actually knew him in person. So he took the pages with him to Dan Tana's, to this restaurant. And that night, Jim called me. So there was no texting back then. We actually had conversations. And so Jim called me up and was like, I talked to Stan. He goes, I said, "How'd it go?" And he goes, "You really want to know?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "What'd he say?" And he said, Stan's first reaction when he read the pages was, "I would never say this shit." And so Jim was like, "I know, Stan, but you're playing a version of yourself. It's not you, it's a character." And so I said, "What'd he say?"
So
he said he might want to do it, but Jim said he wants to talk to you first. I said, "Stan Lee wants to talk to me?" There goes Victor Maitland, killed by both Axel Foley and fucking Ronnie Cox's character, man. He made up for that one bullet shot to the arm. They fucking filled him full of lead and shit. So anyway, I said, "I get to talk to Stan?" He said, "Yeah, you're going to call him." Gave me his number. I'm going to talk to Stan Lee for the first time in my life. Call Stan Lee. He goes, this is Stan Lee. Just like fucking in the cartoons. In like Spider-Man is Amazing Friends. And I said, I know who you are. I said, oh my God, I'm a big fan and blah, blah, blah. This is an honor. And blah. I saw you speak at this con and this con. And all the times I'd ever seen him, but never, spoke to him because he was up on stage. And he said, thank you. Thank you. I'm very flattered. He's going, flattered you want me in the movie. As he said, but I just have to talk to you about it first. He goes, in the movie, you have me playing me. I said, yeah, great you. And he's like, and so in the story, I'm telling a story about the girl that got away, the one that got away. I said, yeah. I got that from Citizen Kane. I stole that from Citizen Kane. A little speech a guy gives to Citizen Kane about passing this girl once and then never being able to, not a day goes by where I don't think of that girl. So I kind of absconded that speech a little bit, made my own version. And he goes, the only problem is you have me talking about the one that got away. And if I play in this movie as myself, talking about the one that got away, the one that didn't get away at home is going to be real pissed, lock me out of the house. And he was talking about Joni, his wife. And I knew his wife's name was Joni because I was a standard. So I was like, Joni be mad? He goes, Joni be very upset. He's going, so if there's can we put in a scene where, I reveal that I'm not, that I was just kidding. And that scene is in the movie. I said, oh my God, are you kidding me? If that's all it takes, I'll put that in. So the scene where he sees TS and TS like, hey, did it work? And he said, I gave him the soliloquy from the, Vulture, love be a vulture tonight issue. That was there because of Stan, because he didn't want to offend or upset his good lady wife of many decades. Isn't that fucking sweet?
Wow.
Like most people just be like, you want me to be in a movie? I'll step on my wife's neck to make that shit happen. And Stan loved being in movies. I mean, as we all saw, Stan liked being the center of attention. He was into that shit. They never had to beg him to do that shit. So even being the guy he was, he still wouldn't throw Joni under the bus, even in a movie as dopey as fucking Mallrats. So it was sweet. It made me love him even more as a human being. And then I met him on the set when we shot that very first day. And it was goosebumps. We took a picture. You can find it online. He's sitting in a director chair, and I think we're in front of Comic Toast, the set, and I think I'm like doing Spider-Man hands behind him and stuff. I'm like, got a big fucking shit-eating grin on my face because there was like, like I said, I'd seen him at comic book conventions, but always from a distance. There he was on our set. He was mine to play with and stuff. And it was really sweet because I grew up with him in my life as a creative force and entity, and fucking his characters taught me morality and stuff like that. I always loved what a salesman he was. He championed his work. He wasn't too cool for school. He'd be out there fucking tub thumping for comic books and shit like that, and talking about Marvel. Always with the sense of humor, very self-deprecating. You could see where I stole a lot of my shtick from and whatnot. So I put him in Mallrats at a time in his life, 1995, when comic books were not huge. We were a few years away from the comic book renaissance. There had been some comic book movies, of course, like Batman and stuff. But we were up to Batman Forever the same year that Mallrats came out in 95. But there were no Marvel movies to say the least. And fucking Stan was well known in the comic book community, but like not nearly as well known as he is in the real world today in the mainstream. So when I put him in the movie, it was like, ladies and gentlemen, here's the guy who created fucking Spider-Man and a bunch of characters you love in comic books, Stan Lee. And of course, he'd be very important to Brody, the character of Brody, but he's very important to me as well. And so I got to introduce him, so to speak, or reintroduce him to a generation that maybe was completely unfamiliar with the work that he started early on, because, they weren't born when it should happen. Years later, Stan Lee does the same thing for me by way of that Captain Marvel cameo. There he is reading the script for Mallrats on the train when Captain Marvel comes and looks at him and shit, smiles. And that was almost like Stan Lee. It says right under Mallrats by Kevin Smith. That's almost the returning of the favor. Stan Lee going, here, let me introduce you to a whole new generation of kids who might not be familiar with the earliest work of yours and stuff. It was a full circle moment, man. And really, really fucking sweet. But man, that fucking putting him in that movie, like not only paid off personally where I felt satisfied, but like it paid off professionally. It made me look like a fucking genius because I was putting this dude in movies long before it was fashionable to put him in movies and stuff. So because of that, it made me look smart. And we all know by basis of my career that I haven't always been fucking smart, so I can use any edge that I can get. So thankfully, Stan not only did that, but Stan also gave me credibility in the comic book field as well. I went on to write for Marvel and I went on to write for DC, and that also had something to do with the fact that Stan vouched for me, particularly in comics and whatnot. So, you know, that little cameo was great for the story of Mallrats, but so much better for the life of Kevin Smith. Like, I got to meet my hero, and he remained a friend all the way up till the end. I was supposed to go see him 4 days after he passed away. There was his buddy at POW had contacted Jordan and said, Stan wants to see Kevin. And he had gone through some, you know, he had a bad year where his phone was turned off by these unscrupulous people who were taking charge of his life after Joni passed away. And so I couldn't even contact him or anything like that. And so after all that was sorted away and fucking they got the bad actors out of his life, he reached out. He was like, I want to see Kevin. And so I was going to see him 4 days later, but he passed away. So you know, very rarely do you get to write, you know, a story as kind of perfect as that. Like, I got to meet my hero, and he was everything you hoped he would be, and he genuinely liked me. It was so strange. We were friends. I didn't realize that for like the first 10, 12 years I knew him, that we were actually fucking friends, or he liked me like I was a friend and shit. I thought, oh, he's Stan Lee, he's just being polite and shit, but he was always genuinely interested in me. And he was always like, when are we making another movie? And I was like, oh, come on, you ruined the one that you're in. And then years later, I got to put him in Yoga Hosers and almost ruined his record. He brought it up at one point. He goes, Kevin, you know, I was looking on the internet, and I said, I've heard of that. And he goes, I read an article that says that all of my movies combined, I have like a higher box office gross than Will Smith, because he was talking about all the Marvel movies. And I was like, you know what? You're probably right if you count all those Marvel movies. And he goes, and I was looking at the records, man, 100 million, 200 million. He's like, and then all of a sudden it drops down under 1 million for Yoga Hosers, and then goes back up for the next movie. I was like, sorry, I ruined your fucking streak. But we did that with Mallrats too. Mallrats didn't do that well. So yeah, man, it was magic knowing the guy. He was everything. He was everything you wanted him to be, and everything you hoped he was. Yeah, I'm still sad that he's not here. We got a big homage to him in Mallrats, because he was meant to be a main character in the third act of Mallrats. He had a big fucking part in and I'm sorry, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. He was also in the Mallrats 2 movie as well, that we never made. But he had a big role in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot and then passed away and stuff. So there's a big homage to him in the beginning and at the end of the movie as well.
Well, thank you for everything you do, Kevin. I'm a big fan. I watch all of your stuff, and Mallrats is one of my favorite films of all time. So,
oh my God, that means the world, man. Thank you for that.
So thank you for answering my question.
No worries. Thanks for bringing up Stan.